Imagine this, a winter morning deep in Siberia. The icy wind howls through the pine trees, the temperature has dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. On the snow and ice-covered roads, most modern trucks are completely helpless. The engines won't start, diesel fuel is frozen solid, and the wheels just spin without moving an inch. But in the distance, a low, thunderous roar breaks the silence, like a steel beast awakening. A massive machine slowly emerges, plowing through meters of snow as if nothing could ever stop it. That is the MAZ-537, an unstoppable monster built by the Soviet Union to conquer the harshest terrains on Earth. In today's video, we're going to dissect this giant, from its heart, a massive 12-cylinder diesel engine, to the powerful 8x8 drivetrain, the self-adjusting tire pressure system, and the technologies that keep it alive in both freezing tundras and scorching deserts. Backhand index pointing right if you enjoy detailed breakdowns of legendary off-road machines like this. Don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Mudlord, so I'll have the motivation to bring you even more high-quality content about the world of military and off-road vehicles. One, why the MAZ-537 is called the Soviet Giant. To understand why the MAZ-537 earned the nickname Soviet Giant, we need to look back at the time of its creation. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union faced a critical strategic challenge, transporting ultra-heavy weapons, tanks, self-propelled artillery, and even intercontinental ballistic missile launchers, across some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. The landscapes of Russia and the Soviet republics were notorious for their extremes: bone-chilling winters, endless spring mud, dusty summers, and scorching deserts. Ordinary military trucks like the ZIL-131 or GAZ-66 were fine for carrying troops and light to medium cargo. But when it came to towing a T-72 tank weighing over 40 tons, or moving a missile system longer than 20 meters, these trucks were completely out of their league. That's why the MAZ-537 was created, a super-heavy prime mover, built to be the muscle giant of the Soviet motor pool. What makes the MAZ-537 remarkable is not just the weight it can tow, but its ability to keep moving when almost every other vehicle would get stuck. Put a civilian heavy hauler, or even a Western tractor-trailer, in the swamps of Belarus or the deep snow of Siberia, and sooner or later it will sink and fail. The MAZ-537, however, was designed to keep going no matter what. When you look at the vehicle, its unusual features stand out immediately. Massive dimensions, over 9 meters long, nearly 3 meters wide, with an empty weight of around 20 tons. 8x8 drivetrain, all 8 wheels powered, turning it into an unstoppable steel ox. Short cab, long chassis, optimized for hauling oversized, ultra-heavy trailers. The MAZ-537 was most often seen hauling enormous trailers loaded with tanks, but the truck itself became a symbol. To Soviet soldiers, it represented unstoppable strength. To enemies watching parades, it was an intimidating reminder, because behind it often came some of the USSR's most terrifying ballistic missiles. Light bulb in short, the MAZ-537 wasn't built to be pretty or fast. It was built to be strong and durable, to conquer the harshest environments and haul the heaviest loads. 2. The engine, a giant's heart. If we think of the MAZ-537 as a massive steel beast, then its heart is the D-12A-525A diesel engine, a mechanical monster that makes ordinary truck engines look tiny. Key specs. Type, V12 diesel, water-cooled. Power output, about 525 horsepower. Torque, enormous, over 2,000 Newton-meters, available at very low RPMs. Displacement, more than 38 liters, comparable to a medium tank engine. To put that into perspective, a modern heavy-duty civilian truck, like a Volvo FH or a Scania V8, typically uses engines between 12 to 16 liters, producing 500 to 600 horsepower. By comparison, the MAZ-537's engine is 2 to 3 times larger in displacement, with similar horsepower but far greater torque at low revs. Light bulb, in other words, the MAZ 537 doesn't need speed, it needs raw pulling power. When you're hauling dozens of tons, accelerating from 0 to 100 km per hour in 10 seconds is pointless. What matters is being able to crawl through mud up to the axles without stalling. Tank DNA. Interestingly, this engine was developed from designs originally used in the legendary T-34 tank and its successors. The reason is simple: only tank engines could meet the extreme requirements of power, durability, and all-weather reliability. Tanks had to fight in mud, snow, or desert sand, and still be able to start after sitting idle for days in brutal conditions. That's exactly what the MAZ 537 needed in its role as a heavy hauler. Survival in extreme climates. In the cold, the engine was equipped with a preheater, allowing it to start at -40 degrees Celsius. Drivers often reported that after running the heater for a few minutes, the massive 38-liter engine would roar to life, even when the diesel fuel was nearly frozen solid. In the heat, it had a huge air filtration system to keep fine desert dust from damaging the cylinders, and a powerful cooling system to prevent overheating while towing in 50 degrees Celsius desert conditions. Fuel consumption, astronomical, up to 150 to 200 liters per 100 kilometers when hauling heavy loads. But for the Soviet military, fuel efficiency was a distant concern compared to reliable transport of strategic weapons. A real-world example of strength. Picture this: a T-72 tank, weighing 41 tons, is stuck in the mud of Belarus. Even a strong truck like the KRAZ 255 struggles, its wheels spinning uselessly. Then the MAZ 537 rolls up. The driver locks it into low gear, the engine hums at just 1200 RPM, and massive torque flows to all 8 wheels. Slowly, the steel monster drags the tank free from the mud, like a raging bull pulling an entire field behind it. That's the difference between an ordinary truck engine and the colossal 38-liter heart of the MAZ 537. 3. Drivetrain and 8x8 power delivery. If the engine is the heart, then the drivetrain is the circulatory system, sending energy to every limb of this steel monster. For a vehicle weighing over 20 tons and regularly towing loads many times its own weight, distributing power effectively is a matter of survival. Full-time 8x8 configuration. The MAZ 537 uses a permanent 8x8 drivetrain, meaning all 8 wheels receive power at all times. This is very different from most 4x4 or 6x6 trucks, where the front axle can often be disengaged to save fuel. In the MAZ 537, there is no compromise, it always moves with full force. Advantages. Weight and torque are distributed evenly, less stress on each wheel. Superior traction on mud, snow, and sand. Allows towing of extreme loads without overloading any single axle. Transmission and transfer case. The MAZ 537 is equipped with a semi-automatic transmission paired with a multi-range transfer case. The driver can select gear ratios: low gears for heavy towing or climbing, high gears for road travel. The transfer case ensures power is evenly split between front and rear axles. In deep mud, the driver can engage ultra-low gears, engine revs stay moderate, but torque is massively multiplied and delivered evenly to all 8 wheels. This is why the MAZ 537 almost never gets stuck. As long as there's even a little ground for the tires to grip, it can crawl forward slowly but surely. Backhand index pointing right. This shows us that the MAZ 537's strength lies not only in its gigantic engine, but also in the way it distributes power intelligently to all 8 wheels, turning each movement into a deliberate, unstoppable crawl. 4. Tires and Central Tire Inflation System, CTS, the secret to all-terrain dominance. If the engine and drivetrain provide power, the tires are the feet that allow the MAZ 537 to stand firm and move across hostile terrain. For a vehicle weighing over 20 tons, not including trailers of 60 to 90 tons, each tire must handle enormous stress. To meet this challenge, the MAZ 537 was equipped with technology that was far ahead of its time in the 1960s, 70s, most notably, a central tire inflation system, CTS, a feature that only became common in modern military trucks decades later. Giant tire construction. Size, about 1.6 meters in diameter and nearly 60 centimeters wide. These were not ordinary truck tires, but heavy-duty, high-load specialized designs. Structure, multi-layered, resistant to cuts and punctures, partially run-flat capable. This allowed the vehicle to keep moving even after damage, at least until the mission was completed. Standard pressure, between 1.8 to 3.5 atm, bar, depending on terrain. Backhand index pointing right. Thanks to their massive contact area, these tires spread the vehicle's weight over a wide surface, preventing it from sinking into mud or snow. Central Tire Inflation System, CTS. This was the standout feature that set the MAZ 537 apart from most trucks of its era. How it works. Each wheel is connected to a central pneumatic system. The driver can adjust tire pressure directly from inside the cab, even while driving. On paved roads, inflate tires for less rolling resistance. On mud, sand, or snow, deflate slightly to increase contact area and grip. Self-regulating function. If a tire starts losing air, the system automatically compensates, keeping the vehicle mission ready. Light bulb. With this system, the MAZ 537 could transform into a true off-road machine with just a few lever pulls, something that even many modern civilian trucks still cannot do. Real advantages of CTS. In mud, deflate the tire's contact area increases, prevents deep sinking. In snow, tires act like wide skis, letting the truck float instead of sinking. In desert sand, larger footprint avoids digging in, a common problem for wheeled vehicles. When hauling heavy loads, inflate to maximum for reduced wear and improved towing efficiency. Comparison with other military trucks. ZL-131 only had conventional tires, no CTS, making it prone to getting stuck under heavy loads. KRAZ-255 featured CTS, but adjustments could only be made while stationary, not on the move like the MAZ 537. Ural 4320, later models had improved CTS, but still fell behind the MAZ 537 in both load capacity and versatility. Backhand index pointing right. This proves the MAZ 537 was one of the pioneers in applying CTIS in real-world military operations, far ahead of many of its contemporaries. Real-world example. A report from the 1980s describes a test in Kazakhstan where an MAZ 537 was towing a missile launcher through soft desert sand. At first, the vehicle began slowing as its wheels sank deeper. The driver immediately reduced tire pressure from 3 atm to 1.2 atm. The tires spread out, nearly doubling their contact area. The truck floated up and continued moving, avoiding a complete stall. Meanwhile, a KRAZ-255 attempting the same route could not adjust tire pressure in time and had to be rescued. Overall assessment. The tire system and CTS made the MAZ 537 practically invincible on soft terrain. This was critical for its role, transporting tanks, missile launchers, and other strategic equipment that absolutely could not be allowed to get stuck. Just picture it, a convoy of MAZ 537s hauling intercontinental missile launchers across swamps or Siberian snowfields. Few vehicles on Earth could take on such a mission, but for the MAZ 537, it was just another day's work. Suspension and chassis, the steel skeleton of the MAZ 537. The chassis, the backbone, carrying the battlefield. Let's start with the chassis. This is the foundation that carries the full burden of the cab, engine, and any trailer, while also resisting the massive twisting forces of rough terrain. Construction. The MAZ-537 uses a huge, heavy-duty welded steel box frame chassis, unlike civilian trucks that rely on bolted frames. This makes the vehicle rigid enough to handle extreme torsion when one wheel climbs a rock while another sinks into a hole. Wheelbase, over 7 meters between the first and last axle, requiring absolute stiffness to prevent the truck from breaking its back on uneven ground. Torsional resistance, thanks to its double-box design, the chassis can withstand over 90 tons of combined vehicle and trailer load. Light bulb in field trials, the MAZ-537 successfully hauled a 60-ton missile trailer without showing long-term frame deformation, a feat few trucks of its era could manage. The suspension, keeping the beast grounded. A multi-ton truck crossing swamps and rocky terrain needs a suspension that prioritizes toughness over comfort. The MAZ-537 uses a simple but nearly indestructible setup. Front axles, semi-elliptical leaf springs with hydraulic shock absorbers. Rear axles, tandem multi-layered heavy-duty leaf springs for extreme load capacity. Advantages: extremely durable and reliable. Can handle heavy shocks when dropping into deep ruts or climbing rocks. Simple to repair or replace under battlefield conditions. Drawbacks: rougher ride than air suspension. More vibration on paved roads at higher speeds. Backhand index pointing right, but comfort wasn't the priority. The mission demanded stability, strength, and reliability, and that's exactly what this suspension delivered. Off-road capability, suspension plus chassis working together. Ground clearance, up to 500 mm, half a meter, on par with light tanks. This allows the MAZ-537 to pass over rocks, trenches, and debris without bottoming out. Frame flexibility, the rigid frame plus leaf springs allow controlled twisting, keeping all wheels in contact with the ground for maximum traction. Terrain handling, the truck can cross 1.5 meter wide ditches, climb 30 to 35 degrees slopes, and drive sideways along steep inclines without tipping over. Light bulb in one Belarus field test, the MAZ-537 pulled a 50-ton self-propelled gun through a swamp. The rear leaf spring sank into mud, but the chassis held firm and all wheels kept traction, preventing the convoy from stalling. A weaker truck frame would have snapped in two under those stresses. Backhand index pointing right. In short, the MAZ-537's chassis and suspension may look crude, but they were perfectly optimized for war, resistant to shocks, weather, and weight. Think of it as a steel mammoth skeleton, heavy, not graceful, but unbreakably strong. Conclusion: the MAZ-537's chassis and suspension embody the Soviet philosophy, durability over sophistication. Not elegant, but unyielding. That's why it became one of the most trusted heavy military haulers ever built, capable of operating anywhere, anytime, under any load. 6. Extreme climate endurance. Designed for every battlefield. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union prepared for the harshest scenarios. Siberian winters at -40 degrees Celsius. Central Asian deserts at +50 degrees Celsius. Even nuclear, chemical, or biological warfare environments. Backhand index pointing right, the guiding principle. Never let nature stop the advance of war. Cold resistance, a Siberian warrior. At -40 degrees Celsius, most diesel engines fail, fuel gels, batteries weaken, metals crack. But the MAZ-537 had unique solutions. Preheater system, a small auxiliary burner, running on gasoline or diesel, warmed the coolant before ignition, allowing smooth starts at -30 degrees Celsius to -40 degrees Celsius. Oversized insulated batteries, sometimes fitted with electric heaters to prevent cold death. Anti-freeze fuel lines, short routes with coolant heating to prevent clogging. Powerful cabin heating, using both engine heat and an auxiliary heater, keeping the crew alive in sub-zero conditions. Light bulb result, The MAZ-537 could operate continuously in Siberia while many Western trucks required constant technical support or downtime. Heat resistance, a desert warrior. At plus 50 degrees Celsius, problems reverse: overheating, fuel evaporation, and scorching cabs. Solutions included: massive cooling system, large radiator, oversized coolant volume, and a high-power fan. Desert air filters, multi-stage filters separated dust before intake. Insulated cab walls, steel plus padding reduced heat absorption. Forced ventilation, fans kept air circulating, though no modern AC. Backhand index pointing right. Thanks to these, the MAZ-537 could haul heavy loads in Kazakhstan and Middle Eastern deserts without engine failure. Sandstorms and blizzards. Dust and snow are deadly to engines. The MAZ-537 countered with high-mounted air intake, placed on the roof to avoid sucking in ground-level dust or snow. Multi-stage washable filters, easy to clean in the field. High-output cooling fan, doubled as a snow clearer for the radiator. Backhand index pointing right. This allowed the truck to push through desert sandstorms or Arctic blizzards while keeping its engine breathing. NBC protection, nuclear, biological, chemical. The MAZ-537 was also designed for a nuclear battlefield. Sealed cabin, tight-fitting panels with optional filtration systems to protect the crew. Protected engine design, reduced chance of contaminated particles entering. Radiation shielding, thick steel cab and frame reduced exposure from initial blasts. Light bulb. That's why the MAZ-537 often carried ICBM launchers, missions that had to continue even if the nuclear apocalypse had already begun. Field tests and real combat use. In Siberia, hauled T-62 tanks through snow over 1 meter deep, maintaining 25 kilometers per hour. In Kazakhstan, operated for days in desert heat, engines still stable despite cabins coated in dust. In Afghanistan, used to transport heavy equipment under brutal hot and dry conditions. Conclusion: the MAZ-537 wasn't just a heavy truck, it was a steel warrior built to survive in places where humans struggle to live. From minus 40 degrees Celsius ice fields to plus 50 degrees Celsius deserts, from blizzards to radiation zones, it never stopped moving. This resilience is why it remains one of the toughest off-road military vehicles of the 20th century, far surpassing most civilian or semi-military machines of its time. 7. Drivetrain and transmission, the secret behind how a 500 HP beast pulls 90 tons. The engineering challenge: power alone isn't enough. A 500 horsepower engine was extremely powerful for a truck in the 1960s. But the challenge is, if the drivetrain is inefficient, the truck just roars without moving the load. If the gearbox is weak, it breaks under tens of tons of stress. If gear ratios aren't optimized, the truck can't climb hills, crawl through mud, and cruise long distances at the same time. Backhand index pointing right. That's why the MAZ-537's drivetrain was designed with one principle: turn every drop of engine power into useful pulling force on any terrain. The transmission, the truck's second heart. The MAZ-537 doesn't use a conventional mechanical gearbox. Instead, it features a hydromechanical transmission. Components: torque converter, allows smooth starts and multiplies torque when needed. Multi-speed automatic gearbox, 3 main gears plus auxiliary range equals 6 speed ranges in total. Transfer case, distributes torque to the front and rear axles. Advantages over mechanical gearboxes: smooth starts, no clutch needed, even with 50 to 70 tons behind it. Torque multiplication, the converter doubles torque for hill climbs. Stronger under load, unlike manual gearboxes, it absorbs shocks instead of braking. Easier to operate, the crew only selects a range, and the gearbox handles the rest. Light bulb: this was cutting-edge technology, because in the 1960s, Western heavy trucks still relied mostly on manual transmissions. The 8x8 drivetrain, 4 pairs of legs for the beast. The MAZ 537's legendary off-road ability comes from its full-time 8x8 drive. All 4 axles are powered. Gear ratios were carefully engineered to deliver balanced torque to every axle. Differential locks ensure all wheels rotate together in mud or snow. Powered and steerable front axles give surprising maneuverability for such a giant. Backhand index pointing right. The result, the MAZ 537 doesn't just handle flat roads, it crawls through swamps, deep snow, and rocky slopes that even smaller 6x6 trucks struggle with. Power delivery to the wheels, no weak links allowed. Heavy-duty driveshafts, thick, designed to resist massive torque loads. Flexible couplings, absorb shocks when wheels hit obstacles. Reinforced differentials, oversized gears, oil lubricated, built to handle overloads. One key design philosophy: every major component can be quickly removed for field repairs. For the Soviets, battlefield serviceability was non-negotiable. Auxiliary drive controls, engaging power on demand. The driver could run on rear-wheel drive only on paved roads, fuel-saving. Engage the front axles in rough terrain. Activate full differential locks when bogged down. Backhand index pointing right. This flexibility made the MAZ 537 a wheeled tank, efficient when needed, unstoppable when pushed to the limit. Load capacity of the drivetrain. Imagine towing a T-72 tank, 42 tons, plus a heavy-duty trailer, 20 tons. Total, about 62 tons. A normal manual transmission would snap a shaft with one wrong clutch release. But the hydromechanical transmission plus 8x8 system allowed the MAZ 537 to start smoothly and pull uphill without strain. In tests, it managed loads up to 90 tons, and the drivetrain still held strong. Durability and field repair. The hydromechanical gearbox may sound complex, but it was built in true Soviet fashion: thick steel casing, minimal electronics, serviceable with basic tools. Entire axles could be swapped as a single unit in the field. Hydraulic fluids were engineered to work from -40 degrees Celsius Siberian winters to +50 degrees Celsius desert heat. Backhand index pointing right. This made the MAZ 537 not just powerful, but battle-hardened and dependable. Conclusion: the drivetrain of the MAZ 537 proves the brilliance of Soviet mechanical engineering. Advanced hydromechanical gearbox torque multiplication and smooth starts under massive loads. Full-time 8x8 system all-terrain dominance. Reinforced axles and shafts capable of hauling up to 90 tons. Light bulb. In short, the engine provides raw power, but it's the drivetrain that transforms it into unmatched pulling force. 8. Suspension and tires, the giant steel feet. The problem of extreme off-road weight. A truck weighing up to 65 tons with cargo can't rely on engine and transmission alone. Without a robust suspension and tire system, it would sink instantly in mud. The chassis would crack on uneven terrain. Wheels would lose grip, causing loss of control. Backhand index pointing right. That's why the MAZ 537 suspension and tires were designed as elephant's feet, absorbing shock and spreading weight across the ground. Suspension, the beast's flexible skeleton. Design. The MAZ 537 uses a semi-independent suspension with multi-leaf springs plus hydraulic dampers on every axle. Multi-leaf springs handle extreme compression, simple and durable. Hydraulic dampers reduce bounce, keeping the truck stable on rough terrain. Advantages: extremely durable, suited for tens of tons of load. Maintains wheel contact even when one wheel drops into a hole. Improves stability and reduces vibrations in the cabin. Light bulb. Not comfortable like a passenger car, but perfectly optimized for heavy loads and traction, exactly what the military required. Giant tires, the secret weapon against mud and snow. size and design. Over 1.6 meters tall, wide profile, reinforced multi-layer construction. Each wheel weighs hundreds of kilograms and is inflated to very high pressures. Backhand index pointing right. These were military-grade off-road tires, far beyond civilian truck designs. Central Tire Inflation System, CTS. An extremely advanced technology for its time. The driver could adjust tire pressure directly from the cabin. On hard surfaces, increase pressure for speed and efficiency. In mud or snow, lower pressure, creating a larger footprint to avoid sinking. Light bulb. Thanks to CTS, the MAZ 537 could crawl through deep swamps where other trucks would get hopelessly stuck. Load distribution. Why a heavy truck can still move. Pulling 50 to 90 tons, if weight concentrated on a few wheels, the truck would sink immediately. But with 8 massive tires, the load was evenly distributed, reducing ground pressure. With large diameter plus deflated tires, the truck would float on soft ground rather than sink. Backhand index pointing right. This is why the MAZ 537 could dominate both Siberian snow and Central Asian deserts. Obstacle clearing ability. Climbing rocky slopes, suspension absorbs twist, wheels stay in contact. Crossing deep trenches, 1.6 m tires step over gaps. Driving on snow, low pressure makes the truck glide like a snowshoe. Rough rocky paths, ultra-thick tires resist punctures and absorb shocks. In practice, the truck could cross 1 meter deep ditches and ford 1.2 meters of water without damaging its suspension or tires. Durability and field maintenance. Tires, huge, but replaceable in the field using onboard hydraulic jacks. Springs and dampers, modular, easy to replace individually. CTIS airlines, routed internally to prevent damage from impacts. Backhand index pointing right. Everything was designed with one mission: the truck must keep rolling, even in wartime conditions. Conclusion. The MAZ 537 suspension and tires were the true enablers of its off-road dominance. Ultra-strong suspension, stability under extreme loads. Giant tires plus CTS, adaptability to any terrain. Even weight distribution, prevents sinking into mud or snow. Light bulb. If the engine and gearbox are the heart and spine, then the suspension and tires are the steel legs that let the MAZ 537 walk over any obstacle. 9. Steering and control, the brain of the steel beast. The challenge of driving the MAZ 537. Handling a passenger car weighing around 1.5 tons already requires attention. But with the MAZ 537, we're talking about a heavy-duty truck weighing 21 to 25 tons empty, and over 60 tons when towing. At nearly 9 meters long and over 3 meters wide, turning it around on a narrow road is a nightmare. Its 8 giant wheels demand an extremely powerful steering system. And with such enormous weight, every movement must be precise, otherwise, the truck risks sliding, tipping over, or damaging its mechanisms. Backhand index pointing right. That's why the MAZ 537 couldn't use a simple mechanical steering system like smaller Soviet trucks, UAZ 469, ZIL 131. It needed advanced technology capable of taming this beast. Hydraulic power steering. Principle. The MAZ 537 was equipped with a hydraulic steering system with strong power assist. Instead of the driver using raw muscle to turn the wheel, a hydraulic pump amplifies their input. The driver turns the wheel lightly. Hydraulic cylinders push the steering linkage, turning the front wheels. Advantages. Reduced effort. Driving an 8-wheeler feels similar to a medium truck. Precision. Quick steering response, even when towing missile trailers over 20 meters long. Safety. Prevents dangerous kickback when wheels hit obstacles. Light bulb. Without hydraulic assist, an average driver would hardly be able to operate the MAZ 537 at all. Dual axle steering. Unlike regular trucks that steer only the first axle, the MAZ 537 steers both the first and second axles. When turning, all 4 front wheels pivot. Turning radius, about 13 meters, remarkably small for such a huge vehicle. This allows maneuvering in forests, military ranges, or even mud pits without endless back and forth. Backhand index pointing right. This is the secret that lets a 9-meter-long monster handle like a medium truck. Braking system, controlling the giant. Multi-circuit air brakes. The MAZ 537 used air brakes on all 8 wheels, controlled by pedal. Extremely high air pressure equals powerful braking force. Multiple independent circuits. If one fails, the others still work safer in combat. Auxiliary brakes, retarder plus parking. Mechanical handbrake holds the truck when parked. Some variants used a hydraulic retarder, slows the truck on long descents, preventing brake overheating. Light bulb. Thanks to this, a 60-ton load could stop safely, without running away, like a brakeless truck, which was critical when transporting missiles or tanks. Visibility and driver aids. Cabin design. Large windshield with heavy-duty wipers for snow and rain. Heated glass prevents ice buildup in winter. Lighting. Large high-beam headlights for long range. Fog lamps for poor weather. Some military variants had infrared headlights for night driving with night vision goggles. Handling in harsh environments. Snow, hydraulic assist makes steering easy, wheels don't lock up. Mud, dual-axle steering helps escape deep bogs. Desert, multi-circuit brakes prevent loss of control on sand. Combat, visibility aids allow driving at night or in smoke/dust. Driver training, not for everyone. MAZ 537 drivers were specially trained in the military. They had to learn handling 20-meter trailers, emergency braking, turning in snow and ice, field repairs when breakdowns occurred. Light bulb driving. The MAZ 537 was an art form, not just turning a wheel and pressing a pedal. Conclusion. The MAZ 537's control systems prove Soviet engineering ingenuity. Hydraulic steering plus dual-axle control equals agility despite size. Multi-circuit air brakes equals safe control of 60 tons. Visibility plus driver aids equals operation in all weather, day or night. Backhand index pointing right. Thanks to this, the MAZ 537 was not just a lump of steel, but a truly functional war machine. 10. Extreme weather operation, from frozen Siberia to burning deserts. Why the MAZ 537 had to withstand extremes. Soviet heavy military trucks weren't just for Moscow, they had to operate. Siberia, -45°C, frozen diesel, dead batteries, brittle metals. Central Asia, +50°C deserts like Karakum, with fine dust-destroying engines. Highlands, Caucasus, Pamir's thin air, poor combustion, less oxygen for drivers. Backhand index pointing right. A machine that only works in theory but fails in the field has no military value. The MAZ 537 was built to survive anywhere. Cold weather starting. Diesel problems in winter. Diesel fuel gels at low temperatures. Lubricating oil thickens, engine can't turn. Weak batteries equals starter can't crank. Solutions on MAZ 537. Auxiliary gasoline heater, warms coolant and oil before start. Massive battery banks, 4 to 6 units in parallel. Pneumatic starting system, compressed air could crank the engine if batteries failed. Insulated fuel lines to prevent freezing. Backhand index pointing right. With these, the MAZ 537 could start at -40°C, when civilian trucks gave up. Operation in hot deserts. Challenges. Engines overheat in +50°C. Fine sand and dust damage cylinders and turbos. Tire pressure rises dangerously in the heat. Solutions: oversized cooling system, giant radiator plus powerful fan. Multi-stage air filters, trap desert dust, easy to clean. Central tire inflation system, adjust pressure for sand or hard ground. Strong ventilation, some versions even had basic AC. Backhand index pointing right. This allowed the MAZ-537 to work all day under desert sun, towing tanks or missiles without failure. High-altitude operation. Thin air reduces diesel combustion, lowering power. Drivers also suffer fatigue from low oxygen. Solutions: powerful turbocharger, forces in more air, maintaining power above 3,000 m. Low gear ratios, support long uphill climbs. Well-ventilated cabin for driver comfort. Water and river crossing. Battlefields often lacked bridges. The MAZ-537 could ford up to 1.2 meters of water without preparation. High-mounted snorkel and sealed electrics. Waterproof hub seals to block muddy water. Backhand index pointing right. It could cross Siberian rivers or swampy fields without stalling. Real-world combat adaptability. Eastern Europe winters, missile launchers could move within minutes despite snow. Kazakhstan summers, towed T-62 tanks under +50 degrees Celsius. Afghanistan terrain, mountains, rivers, dust, yet remained reliable. Conclusion of Section 10. The MAZ-537's extreme weather resilience wasn't just advertising, it was battle-proven. Started reliably at -40 degrees Celsius. Operated continuously at +50 degrees Celsius. Crossed rivers, climbed high mountains, endured deserts. Backhand index pointing right. That's why the MAZ-537 became one of the legendary military off-road vehicles of the 20th century, powerful in engineering, and unyielding against nature itself. 11. Real-world applications, from military to civilian industry. Military applications. The MAZ-537 was born as a military heavy-duty tractor, designed mainly to transport the heaviest weapons of the Soviet arsenal. Tank and armored vehicle transport. It could tow virtually any Soviet tank, from the T-54 and T-62 to the T-80. With tanks weighing 36 to 50 tons, the MAZ-537 paired with the CHMZAP-5247G trailer handled the job with ease. Key advantages. A 3-speed planetary gearbox provided immense pulling force, allowing stable operation even under extreme loads. Its 8x8 drivetrain let it pull trailers across mud, snow, and unpaved roads. Backhand index pointing right. In fact, during large-scale exercises in Eastern Europe in the 1970s and 80s, endless convoys of MAZ-537s hauling tanks became a symbol of Soviet military power. Strategic missile transport. One of its most critical roles was as a mobile launcher for nuclear missiles. Variants like the MAZ-537 and MAZ-547 towed launchers for the R-14 and RSD-10 Pioneer, SS-20 missiles. Advantages. A powerful engine that could start up and move quickly, reducing the chance of being detected and destroyed. All-terrain capability, allowing missiles to be deployed in remote areas without fixed bases. Operable in all weather conditions, ensuring 24/7 nuclear deterrence. Backhand index pointing right. This is why Western observers nicknamed the MAZ-537 the nuclear ghost of the Cold War. Special equipment transport. Beyond tanks and missiles, the MAZ-537 also towed massive radar systems, mobile pontoon bridges, heavy fighter jets, such as the MiG-25 or Su-27, on airfields. Backhand index pointing right. A single MAZ-537 could tow aircraft weighing 40 to 50 tons from parking areas to the runway thanks to its incredible pulling power. Civilian industry applications. After being phased out of certain military roles, many MAZ 537s were converted for civilian use. Oil and mining industry. Used to move mobile drilling rigs in Siberia. Transported excavators, drilling machines, and cranes to roadless areas. Perfectly suited for West Siberian oil fields, where temperatures often drop to -40 degrees Celsius. Heavy construction. Carried steel bridges and concrete beams weighing hundreds of tons. Hauled crawler cranes to job sites. At some nuclear power plants, MAZ 537s even transported massive reactors and turbines. 1.2.3 Airports and aviation. Converted into aircraft tugs at major Soviet and Eastern European airports. Capable of towing huge planes like the An-124 Ruslin or the Tu-95 bomber. Civilian heavy transport. Some commercial heavy transport companies purchased retired MAZ 537s for oversized cargo hauling. Why? Much cheaper than Western heavy-duty tractors. Easy to maintain thanks to its simple mechanical design. Backhand index pointing right. That's why many MAZ 537s are still in service today across Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and even parts of the Middle East. Comparison with Western counterparts. Oshkosh M1070, USA, introduced later in 1992, more modern, but the MAZ 537 had already done the same job since the 1960s. Fawn SLT-50 Elephant, Germany, powerful, but limited to NATO service and not as versatile across multiple environments. Conclusion: the MAZ 537 may lack comfort and modern features, but in raw durability and pulling power in the field, it remains a legend. Section conclusion. The MAZ 537 was never just a military vehicle. It became a multi-role heavy transport platform. Military, tanks, missiles, radars, aircraft. Civilian, oil, mining, construction, airports. Backhand index pointing right. That's why, even after more than 60 years, many MAZ 537s are still working, proof that this is one of the most successful off-road designs of the 20th century. 12. Real-life experience, pleasure and punishment. The driver's perspective, controlling a steel beast. Driving a MAZ 537 is nothing like operating a normal truck. It feels like taming a 20-ton steel monster, nearly 9 meters long, powered by a 38.9-liter diesel engine. Behind the wheel. The high seating position gives a sense of dominating the road. The cabin is spacious but brutally mechanical and barebones. The D-12A V12 roars like a T-72 tank, shaking the entire cabin. When revved, the whole truck shudders with a deep growl, making the driver feel like they're inside a true war machine. Backhand index pointing right. Many veterans recalled, when you start the engine, even the ground trembles. The challenge of driving. Heavy steering, even with hydraulic assist, the sheer weight makes low-speed steering exhausting. Unusual transmission. The 3-speed planetary gearbox required complex coordination of clutch, throttle, and braking. Rookie drivers often needed months to master it. Poor visibility. With a high cabin and long nose, blind spots were a constant risk in cities or narrow roads. Air brakes, extremely strong, but if misused, they caused violent jerks that shook the entire trailer. Backhand index pointing right. Soviet drivers used to joke, it takes both muscle and nerves of steel to drive this beast. Off-road experience. Mud. Even with huge tires, the truck sometimes sank, forcing drivers to use throttle, clutch techniques to wiggle free. 30-degree slopes. It could climb, but only if the driver kept steady power. Stalling meant dangerous rollbacks. Snow and rivers. Soldiers described it as a land-based icebreaker, blasting through water and snow with unstoppable momentum. The soldier's experience. Harsh cabin conditions. No air conditioning. Boiling hot in summer, freezing in winter. Heating only kept the windshield from icing, not the crew warm. Deafening engine noise. Many long-term drivers suffered hearing loss. Riding under heavy load. With a tank or missile trailer attached, the cabin shook violently. In turns, soldiers swayed side to side like on a roller coaster. Many joked, riding in a MAZ-537 is like going to the gym and an amusement park at the same time. Pride of the job. Despite the hardship, MAZ-537 crews felt immense pride. They operated one of the strongest vehicles in the world. During parades on Red Square, columns of MAZ-537s carrying missiles became iconic displays of Soviet power. Drivers earned respect from fellow soldiers for their skill and toughness. Military anecdotes. Once, a MAZ-537 got stuck deep in Siberian mud. Instead of waiting for recovery, 2 more MAZ-537s were chained together to pull it out, creating a legendary sight of 3 beasts in a row. During an exercise, a convoy of MAZ-537s towing tanks stretched over 5 kilometers, bringing an entire town's traffic to a halt. Locals watched in awe and fear. Some drivers joked, "We called it a wheeled tank, because operating it felt no different than driving a giant T-55. Conclusion. Driving the MAZ-537 was both an honor and a hardship. Honor, to command a machine unmatched in heavy transport. Hardship, because of its raw, unforgiving operation, loud, heavy, and exhausting. Backhand index pointing right, but these very experiences created the legend of the Soviet soldier and the steel beast MAZ-537, an enduring symbol of strength and resilience on every road. Overall evaluation, why the MAZ-537 remains an off-road legend. Key strengths. When evaluating the MAZ-537, it's clear that this was never just a truck. It was a true strategic platform. Its off-road dominance came from several engineering features. The Monster D12A engine. 525 horsepower from nearly 39 liters of displacement. Enormous torque, enough to pull hundreds of tons. Reliable in extreme conditions, from minus 50 degrees Celsius in Siberia to plus 50 degrees Celsius in Central Asia. Backhand index pointing right. This engine was the beating heart that turned the MAZ-537 into the ultimate muscle machine of the Cold War. 8x8 drivetrain, power to every wheel. Full all-wheel drive, distributing torque to all 8 wheels. Near absolute off-road ability, mud, snow, sand, swamps. Locking differentials kept it moving even if one wheel lost traction. Backhand index pointing right. This is why many nicknamed it a wheeled tank. Giant low-pressure tires. Wheels nearly 1.5 meters in diameter. Central tire inflation system adjust pressure for mud, sand, or hard roads. Large footprint prevented it from sinking deep into soft ground. Ultra-strong chassis and suspension. Heavy-duty steel frame, thick and rigid. Independent suspension absorbed massive shocks. Allowed safe transport of tanks, missiles, and heavy equipment across rough terrain. Multi-role capability. Military, tank transporters, missile launchers, radar systems. Civilian, oil and gas operations, logging, heavy recovery. Exported worldwide, proving its practicality beyond the USSR. Weaknesses that can't be ignored. For all its strengths, the MAZ-537 had its flaws. Fuel consumption. 125 to 150 liters/100 km unloaded. 200 to 250 liters/100 km when towing heavy loads. Speed. Max speed 55 km/h. Built for strength, not for speed. Hard to operate. Loud, hot in summer, freezing in winter. Steering and gearbox required real skill. Maintenance. Giant engine with complex parts. Repairs required workshops and skilled engineers. Backhand index pointing right. In short, the MAZ-537 made sense in military or industrial settings, but it was never suited for civilian everyday use. Why it's still considered a legend. Symbol of Soviet power. Every parade on Red Square showed it hauling ballistic missiles, an image of deterrence and raw strength. It embodied the message, the USSR can bring nuclear war anywhere. Unmatched off-road ability. Few vehicles then, or even today, can haul super-heavy loads across mud, snow, and desert with such ease. Truly a bridge between a truck and a tank. Incredible durability. Many MAZ 537s from the 1960s are still operational today. Proven reliability in both military and civilian industries. Cultural and historical impact. Featured in documentaries, museums, and video games, Spin Tires, SnowRunner, Wargame. A cult icon among off-road and military vehicle enthusiasts. Why people still talk about it today. Even with newer models like the MAZ 7917 or MZKT 79221, the MAZ 537 remains beloved because pure mechanical design, minimal electronics, easy to repair. A living legend, more than just a vehicle, its history. Still in use in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Asia well into the 2000s. Backhand index pointing right. It's often compared to the AK-47 of military trucks, not elegant, not refined, but tough, powerful, and effective. Section conclusion. The MAZ 537 was never just a military truck. It was an unstoppable off-road machine. A symbol of Cold War power. A legend among off-roaders, soldiers, and engineers. Backhand index pointing right. That's why, more than half a century later, the MAZ 537 is still remembered as the steel legend, the Soviet-wheeled beast. 14. Final conclusion. MAZ 537, the immortal steel icon. From military tool to historical symbol. The MAZ 537 was more than a heavy truck, it was a symbol of Soviet mechanical power. Born in the heat of the Cold War, it gave the USSR unmatched mobility for its heaviest weapons. With its massive engine, 8x8 drivetrain, low-pressure tires, and rock-solid chassis, it became the steel wheels, carrying tanks, self-propelled guns, and even intercontinental ballistic missiles. What set it apart was its adaptability. From frozen Siberia to Central Asian deserts and Eastern European forests, the MAZ 537 proved that brute mechanical strength could overcome nature, without relying on fragile electronics. Timeless values. Engineering excellence, a perfect blend of raw power and rugged reliability. Propaganda symbol, every appearance on Red Square captured global attention. Legendary durability, many still running after 50 to 60 years. Cultural influence, from books and films to games and enthusiast communities. Lessons from the MAZ 537. Even in today's world of advanced vehicles, the MAZ 537 teaches us. Pure mechanical strength will always be essential in extreme conditions. Rugged design can outlast modern electronics. A true engineering icon is defined not only by performance, but also by its impact on history and people. The MAZ 537 is more than a machine, it's a steel legend, a testament to humanity's drive to conquer the harshest environments. More than 60 years on, it remains an immortal icon of off-road power, a giant with 4 axles, 8 wheels, and the strength to carry nation's heaviest burdens. Backhand index pointing right. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and support Mudlord, so I can bring you more stories about legendary off-road machines and military engineering marvels.